A lot of things happen to us that are just completely out of our control. Well, that's why we carry tools with us. And for the truck I recently got, I'm starting with an empty toolbox and a blank slate. So today we're going to put together my EDC Minimalist Tool Kit. Between just getting this truck and then swapping vehicles, plus working on remodeling the new house, I've got tools scattered everywhere at the moment. Life is chaotic for me. So for me, getting a tool kit together, it being organized, and then putting it in here is important. It's a starting point for everything else. A new truck, I want to start off organized and then work my way out and hopefully get everything else organized. At least that's the plan. Okay, and as far as the toolkit, this doesn't have to be for a truck. It could be for an SUV, car, whatever vehicle you're in. I think it's really good for us to have tools with us. So we talked a couple of weeks ago about putting together a toolkit. Well, today we're going to put the toolkit together. And I'm calling this EDC Everyday Carry because of a comment made by Will that I thought was really good. Will mentioned that he travels a lot, tows camper and boat, things like that, and that having extra tools with him has really paid off in the past. All right, so he's broke down out of town at a parts store so he could get parts, but thankfully he had the extra tools with him to fix whatever also. Okay, I thought that was a really good point. I have to agree with you, Will, that having some extra tools when we're on a trip, especially if we're towing something, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. But this is just for every day around town, commute back and forth to work, that type of thing. Okay, so this is the minimalist tools that we would need for just the basic simple things that we might could repair right there on the side of the road. This is what we came up with for the EDC Minimalist Tool Kit. And I say we because this was a collaborative effort. We talked about the truck toolkit a couple of weeks ago when I was first putting together this idea. Okay, well, I got a lot of great feedback from so many of you. Well, I added a few things to this that a couple of you suggested. And I did this on a budget, so keep that in mind. Did I mention I just got a truck and I'm remodeling a house? I'm seriously trying to save some money here. All right, so this was the best I could come up with for the money between Amazon and Harbor Freight, and not my favorite brands or places to shop, but hey, we're on a budget. So let's see exactly what we've got and go through this. First up is the Pittsburgh 51-piece socket set. And I think I'm going to leave this just in the box as is. So I'm not going to try to put this in the toolbox here. Okay, for our 51 pieces, we got a 3/8 inch drive ratchet. We got a 1/2 inch drive ratchet. We got one extension. Okay, that's not good. I probably want to add an extension at some point. And then we've got a variety of metric and standard sockets. We got an adapter here to go to a 1/4 inch drive socket. We've got a nut driver, and then a couple of deep well sockets that I'll probably never use for anything. Which is why I wanted to go with, I debated this before, whether or not to even add a ratchet, socket and ratchets. Yeah, we need them. Okay, so I decided to add this, but I didn't want the huge 500-piece kit of anything with quadruple whatever parts that we don't need. Now, however many duplicates they could figure out how to put in there. All right, now I would like to have a few deep wells in here. You just never know when you're going to run into that one nut and bolt that you need a deep well socket. But for our minimalist toolkit, and hey, this might not be minimalist at this point, I think this is going to work. This will take care of a lot of little things we could run into. Next up, Klein Screwdriver. I couldn't cheap out on this. And I like Klein tools. I like this particular screwdriver / nut driver. And this is the one tool out of the whole kit that I'm very confident that this is going to last. Yeah, this is pretty stout right here. And we've already got one bit with it. And I picked up a 49-piece set of bits, Torx, hex, Phillips, and flatheads to go with this. And these are hardened bits. Let's make sure they fit real quick. And they do. And while we've got these out and in different pieces that are going to want to go all over the place, let's go ahead and put the zip ties to work. Yeah, I had to pick up some zip ties. Now these won't be sliding around everywhere. Next up, knockoff vice grips from Harbor Freight. I generally go with the vice grip brand. But again, we're on a budget here, and I didn't price it. I might have came out better going with vice grip brands anyway, depending on what the price is. But these will work in a pinch, and yeah, they're definitely not as good as vice grips. I can tell you that now. Just a lot more slop in these. Little small Harbor Freight multimeter. Okay, and this is a small one, and it is a cheap one. But this will be something for out there just on the side of the road. Am I getting any power to this? And I'll have to take this part and add a battery to it, whatever size battery it takes. Channellocks, big Channellocks. I wouldn't want to put a lot of stress on these, but I think these are going to work okay. Again, for that temporary, every once in a while, whatever use. And I said Channellocks. No, Channellocks is a brand, and that's usually what I get. I don't even know what brand these are. I probably couldn't pronounce it anyway. Adjustable wrenches. Yeah, I wanted to say crescent wrenches, but that's another brand. I got the 4-pack because it was cheaper to get the 4-pack than to get 2 individuals, but I only want 2 individual adjustable wrenches in this kit. I want the 12-inch and I want the 8-inch. And then I'll take the 6-inch and the 10-inch and I'll put these in the Tahoe. Anything left over out of a kit goes into the kit that's in the Tahoe. Next up, big screwdriver / pry bar. Flathead. I'd like to find a larger Phillips. Just every once in a while you run across a large Phillips screw. Usually when they're this big, they've got also a nut on the end of it, so you can use a wrench socket or a Phillips, but it can be handy sometimes. But having a large flathead for a pry bar can be very handy a lot of times. Pliers and almost Channellocks. And this is another one of those that it was cheaper to get the set at Harbor Freight than to get the individual pieces. Now, out of this set, I want to keep the needle nose pliers with the cutters in them. I also want to keep the smaller Channellock, Pittsburgh Channellock. Next up, a work light. And this is just one of the little cheap ones from Harbor Freight, little LED. But I read one of the comments, and it got my attention. This was from user Dilemmas. Hey, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Y'all got to cut me some slack with some of these usernames. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but basically it was a good flashlight didn't make the list back when we were talking about this before. And I always keep a flashlight in the truck, so I didn't even think about mentioning a flashlight before. But what really got my attention there was he said good. Okay, I never have a good flashlight. I'm always struggling with flashlights. Batteries are dead, they're on the fritz, you know, hit them a few times and get them to work, that type of stuff. All right, so I did want a good work light for this. And this is not a good work light. This works, but that's about it. Okay, so I will slap a couple batteries in this and just leave it here in the shop. It's amazing how often I use these for filming, especially if I'm outside or something. So what I did is I went on Amazon, and this was actually one of the pricier items. I got 2 LED rechargeable work lights. Okay, and the reason I went with the rechargeable, oh, they even had the power cable with them. Okay, magnet on the side, a little hook that flips up, little hole in the back. Okay, so this should provide plenty of light. Yeah, that's 2 settings. Okay. With what I said before about always needing a battery backup for my phone. Okay, and our phones, this is just automatically understood. This is an essential part of any toolkit, and definitely EDC now. Okay, I don't always have extra batteries with me for this. But if I've got a battery backup, plus I did get my charger, that's the older truck, so it doesn't have all the USB ports in it that the new vehicles have. Okay, so I got the Anker Charger, so it's got the USB input on it. Between this, I've always got a way to charge a flashlight, rechargeable one in the vehicle. If the vehicle's running, I can use this. If it's not, I got the battery backup for the phone. With this, I'm never going to be without a way to charge the batteries. Oh, and it sits perfectly on the top of the toolbox. And 2 of these came in the pack, so this gives me one for the Tahoe. Next up, and this was from Will, and I thought this was a really good comment, an OBD Code Reader. All right, so this is Bluetooth. For what it is, I didn't think it was that expensive. I've already downloaded an app to my phone. I can plug this into my vehicle, read my codes. Okay, this isn't going to fix anything if I'm broke down on the side of the road. But this can definitely help me diagnose some issues. Then at least I know what I'm dealing with. Okay, and can really speed up making repairs, like replacing a relay or something like that, especially with everything going computer now. Okay, and this is something that normally I would keep just here in the shop. Okay, I wouldn't leave this in my vehicle, but this one being Bluetooth is so small, light, and portable that I can just throw this in the toolbox. And I think, yeah, this fits with the minimalist toolbox, even though, again, we're not very minimalist at this point. Next up, 12-volt compressor for inflating tires, and it's amazing how useful these are. This might prevent me from having to change a tire and get the jack out to start with. Okay, these get used, and this is actually my second one. My first one has definitely had some use, and this is some brand I can't pronounce. I ain't even gonna try. All right, but it's off Amazon. Same brand as the exact same one as the first one I've had. I've had it for quite a few years now, and it has done well. So I think this one will work fine also. Definitely good to have as an emergency backup just for a time. And not just for the truck, but for a trailer if I'm towing or whatever. And finally, and this is the one I think I struggled with more than anything, what brand is this? Buter. Anyway, battery jump starter for the vehicle. Okay, and I say I struggled with this because there were so many options for battery starters or jump starters. I looked at a couple of power banks, so the Stanley and the DeWalt power banks that also had the compressor built into them for inflating your tire, and USB ports on them. And then they had lithium battery jump starter, and a lot of options. I don't know what the best option is here. I really don't. But as I was reading all of the reviews on all of them, it reminded me of one thing, and that's these are disposable. Ultimately, these are a disposable item. It's because batteries are disposable. They don't last. And what really just made me aware of that when I was reading the review on the DeWalt, of course, I was reading the absolute worst reviews, which wasn't a large percentage of them, but someone commented that the compressor built into the DeWalt unit, that the main gear driving it was made out of plastic, and if you ran it too long, that the gear just melted. And I thought, well, you know, it makes sense. They would put plastic gears in it. The whole unit's disposable. That's the reason we need these, is usually because our batteries died and we got to go get a new battery because the battery in our car is disposable. So this had the best reviews for the price. This was the cheapest one with the best reviews. And we'll just have to try it and see what happens. And this one comes with the little jumper cables and power cable for charging it. I think I'm going to leave this in the box though to try to keep it protected. I think we did okay for under $275, and this certainly isn't an all-inclusive toolkit, but I think for a EDC Minimalist Tool Kit for the truck, I think that's going to work pretty good. Throwing these two separate things and okay, now let's go put these to use. I mentioned that a big part of buying the tools I did was because I'm on a budget, and yeah, that is a factor, but there's also another reason, and that's because years ago I had a toolbox very similar to this that someone stole out of the back of my Tahoe. Okay, that's the risk we take with anything we leave in our vehicles. All right, so yeah, that just makes it that much tougher to buy really good tools for a vehicle. And with that said, even with what I got here, I want to protect it. So we're going to change the lock out on this toolbox. And not that there's anything wrong with the lock, except for the previous owner lost the key. And I need a lock that works for this. So I think we can do that with just an 8-inch adjustable pliers here. Let's get this knocked out real quick. The adjustable won't quite get in there, so I had to go get a wrench. And I'm not sure it's going to get in there. Make sure we got it turned correct. Yep. Now let's just get this nut on here and we should be good. Yeah, but there just isn't much to grab on with this plate in here. And I'm still not giving up my jumper cables, even if I do have that start. So that's my EDC Minimalist Tool Kit. And I would love to say it's finished, but I don't know that a tool kit ever is finished. Okay, I still haven't put my duct tape, baling wire, and hammer in there. They're right here, I just keep forgetting to put them in it. And then I noticed my mechanic's gloves. Okay, I'm going to throw these in there. This can be really nice this time of year when it's really cold. Okay, and then you saw when we were changing the nut on the lock that the adjustable wrench and channel locks, I couldn't get a hold of what little bit of that nut was sticking up past the plate with those, and I ended up having to get a wrench. Okay, I could keep a set of wrenches in there, but that ended up being a 22mm wrench. Even if I carried a wrench set, metric and standard, what are the odds I'm going to have wrench sets that go all the way up to 22mm? Probably pretty slim. So the point of the EDC Minimalist Tool Kit is not to have everything. It's just to have the basics that we can get by with. And had I got the hammer, I could have used that screwdriver and I could have got that nut off if I had to. Well, opening up all of these tools seemed especially appropriate on this Christmas morning as we celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior. And I think this whole topic was especially appropriate for Christmas also because, all right, correct me if I'm wrong here in my thinking, but by my thinking, it's important for us men, especially us Christian men, to be as self-reliant as absolutely possible. I think that's part of following in the example of Christ. Okay, and the reason I say that, if we're starving and have no food ourselves, then we can't help feed the hungry. If we're poor and destitute, then we can't give money to the poor because we don't have any to start with. All right, having tools and being self-reliant, being able to fix our own problems, puts us in a position to where we can help fix other people's problems. My jumper cables, yes, I'm keeping them. I've used them a time or two to help myself, but I've used them far more often to help other people. So yeah, I think these tools are important and not just for us. God bless. Merry Christmas to each and every one of you, and we'll see you next time.